Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am Hari, and I'm thrilled to be diving into another fascinating journey through time with you today.
And I'm Kini. Thanks for joining us. Today we have a creature that sounds like it was assembled in a mythical creature generator. We are talking about Ornithoprion, an extinct genus of cartilaginous fish that swam the ancient seas millions of years before the first dinosaur even thought about existing.
Exactly. To be precise, Ornithoprion lived during the Muscovian stage of the Pennsylvanian subperiod. We're looking at a time spanning from roughly 315 to 307 million years ago. The only known species in this genus is Ornithoprion hertwigi.
And what a fantastic name that is! Ornithoprion literally translates from Greek to bird saw. It sounds like a strange carpentry tool, but the name was actually inspired by the animal's vaguely bird-like pointed skull and the aggressive, saw-like appearance of the teeth in its lower jaw. The specific name, Hertwigi, is a nod to the eminent German zoologist Oskar Hertwig.
It's a fitting tribute. But, Kimi, the way this ancient bird saw was brought to the modern world is a scientific marvel in its own right. The genus was formally described quite recently in the grand scheme of paleontology, back in 1966 by paleontologist Rainer Zengerl.
Right, and Zengerl based his description largely on 7 delicate fossils collected starting in the 1950s. These were found in the Mecca Quarry Shale of Park County, Indiana. Those rocks are part of the Linton Formation. There was also a single specimen from the nearby Logan Quarry Shale and another mysterious one from near Wilmington, Illinois, discovered in a private collection. What blows my mind is the preservation.
Oh, absolutely. These fossils were locked in carbonaceous black shale. In the case of the Illinois specimen, it was preserved in a pyritic mode, meaning it was quite literally composed of fool's gold or pyrite. But because they were preserved in such delicate shale, extracting them with a standard rock hammer and chisel would have completely destroyed them.
Which brings us to the really cool tech of the 1960s. Instead of extracting them, Zengerl and his team primarily studied the holotype and paratypes using radiographic imaging. They used stereoscopic X-rays to peer through the shale and study the hard parts of the fish's body from the inside out.
It was groundbreaking. They even took one specimen from the Staunton Formation and cut it into multiple cross-sections to study the internal anatomy of its scales and teeth. Thanks to this meticulous work, at the time of its discovery, Ornithoprion represented one of the best-known holocephalans of the Paleozoic era. It was one of the very few where the endoskeleton, including the incredibly detailed gill arches, was actually known.
Let's get into what those X-rays actually revealed, because the anatomy of this fish is just wildly weird. Ornithoprion was relatively small compared to some of its monstrous cousins. We're talking about a cranium length of up to 10 centimeters, or roughly 3.9 inches, and an estimated total body length of up to 91 centimeters, or about 3 feet.
Not a massive sea monster, but certainly bizarre. Its internal skeleton was made of cartilage, much like modern sharks and rays, but it was reinforced by an outer coating of mineralized tesserae, these prismatic structures that overlay the cartilage. But the real star of the show here is its skull, specifically the jaw.
Oh, the jaw. The lower jaw was roughly 1.3 times the length of the rest of the skull. It featured a jointed, forward-facing projection called the mandibular rostrum. Now, similar rostra are found in related fish, but Ornithoprion's was significantly longer. Even stranger, both this rostrum and a matching section of the snout were uniquely armored by tiny rods of bone embedded right in the skin.
And the mechanics of that jaw were practically broken by modern standards. The rostrum articulated with the Meckel's cartilages, which act as the mandible, at a flexible joint. But those Meckel's cartilages were broad, flattened, and nearly immobile. Because of their shape, paleontologists believe Ornithoprion was actually incapable of closing its mouth.
Imagine swimming around for your entire life with your mouth stuck open. But wait, it gets better. Let's talk about the saw part of the bird saw. The lower dentition featured a tooth whorl. This was essentially a connected root along the midline of the lower jaw from which multiple tooth crowns extended. It literally looked like a circular saw blade.
It possessed up to 7 broad, rounded, bulbous tooth crowns in that whorl, positioned right near where the mechal's cartilages met the mandibular rostrum. And it wasn't just the whorl, it had additional rows of flattened, rod-like teeth forming what researchers call a tooth pavement along the sides of the jaws. It's like having a buzzsaw up front and a cobblestone street in the back of your mouth. The upper jaw had similar pavement-forming teeth, plus some larger, pointed V-shaped teeth. The exact placement of these upper teeth was actually a point of contention. Zangerel thought they attached directly to the underside of the cranium, but later researchers like Sven-Erik Bendix Almgren and Roger S. Miles suggested they attached to a fused portion of the palatoquadrates.
Speaking of those palatoquadrates, the upper jaws, they were incredibly reduced in Ornithoprion, far more so than in its famous spiral-jawed relative Helicoprion. These highly specialized features led to a massive, decades-long debate about exactly where Ornithoprion belonged on the Tree of Life.
Taxonomy drama is the best drama, Hari. Initially, people sometimes called it a shark. Zangerel originally classified it in the family Idestidae and considered them elasmobranchs, the group containing true sharks. But the anatomy just didn't quite fit. Roger S. Miles in 1971 tentatively placed it within holocephaly, suggesting any shark-like traits were just convergent evolution.
And Bendix Almgren argued that the features uniting these fishes were inconsistent. Eventually, in a 1981 book, Zangerel placed Ornithoprion into a new family, Caesiodontidae, within the order Eugenodontiformes. Today, we know that these eugenodonts are a monophyletic group in the subclass Holocephaly, so their closest living relatives are actually the chimeras, also known as ghost sharks, not true sharks.
It's wild to think about. Modern chimeras are deep-water oddballs, but Ornithoprion and its eugenodont relatives developed a lifestyle and an appearance much closer to a classic shark, and they lived in a very different world. Let's paint a picture of their environment, the North American mid-continent sea.
Right. This was a massive inland sea covering much of what is now North America. The fossils were found in areas that represent shallow, marine, or brackish water environments along the sea's margins. We're talking extremely shallow water habitats, likely less than a meter deep in some places, punctuated by isolated, deeper pools.
And the surrounding ecosystem was incredibly rich. The presence of peat and coal in the geological record indicates these deposits overlaid drowned forests. It was a cyclotheme, a transgression of a marine environment rolling right over a terrestrial one. The black shale itself was born from vast amounts of organic matter, probably floating algal mats, which created anoxic, oxygen-deprived mud on the seabed. Which is great for preserving fossils, but not so great if you're trying to breathe in it. Zangerel and his colleague Eugene S. Richardson Jr. proposed a fascinating, albeit grim, theory about these shallow waters. They believed the water levels would drop significantly during dry seasons, trapping fishes into small ponds they dubbed fish traps.
Oh, the fish traps. Imagine being isolated in an overcrowded, shrinking puddle with a bunch of apex predators. Zangerel and Richardson hypothesized that these isolated ponds led to frantic hunting and a mass death assemblage. And the fossil evidence supports this. Many specimens of Ornithoprion hertwigi show terrifying damage. Portions of their skeletons are maimed, broken, or completely missing.
Yeah, Zangerel noted that the unpreserved rear halves of some animals might have been literally severed by larger predators. You even see small chunks missing from their skulls, likely from other fishes biting them and fracturing their cartilage. It was a vicious ecosystem. Almost all the fish skeletons from the Logan Quarry show similar feeding traces or are preserved within fossilized regurgitates or coprolites, which is the polite scientific term for fossilized feces.
A tough way to go out. But Ornithoprion wasn't just a victim, it was a predator too. Its unique tooth whorl and those bulbous crowns indicate it was durophagous, meaning it specialized in eating hard-shelled prey like invertebrates. It would crush their shells between those upper and lower pavement teeth.
And that bizarre mandibular rostrum we talked about earlier, while they couldn't bite down like a normal fish, Zengerel speculated that they used that long, bone-armored jaw projection to disturb or probe the sediment, hunting for prey hiding in the seabed. It could have been used as a tool to dislodge benthic invertebrates like brachiopods right out of the muck.
It really highlights how evolution tries out these incredibly unique, specialized body plans. Even its skin was specialized. The known parts of Ornithoprion's body were completely covered in tiny, tooth-like dermal denticles. But unlike other cartilaginous fish, many of these denticles fused into compound structures called polyodontido scales.
That's a great detail. These scales shared a single mushroom-shaped base with upwards of 7 crowns emerging from it. And uniquely, the bases of these denticles in Ornithoprion may have been composed of actual bone, rather than a form of dentin. Zengerel even speculated that the reinforcing bony rods on its snout were formed by the fusion of these exact polyodontido scales. It's like it was wearing a bespoke suit of microscopic armor. It is amazing how much information we've been able to glean from flattened, delicate fossils embedded in black shale using 1960s X-ray technology. Ornithoprion is a perfect example of why the Carboniferous period is so captivating. It was a time of bizarre evolutionary experiments that we just don't see in modern oceans.
I couldn't agree more, Kaimi. From a jaw that couldn't close to a circular saw for teeth to swimming in shallow, anoxic fish traps, Ornithoprion's story is a brilliant window into our planet's deep past. That just about wraps up our deep dive into the bird saw of the Pennsylvanian subperiod. We hope you enjoyed learning about this strange little fish as much as we did.
We certainly do. Be sure to tune in next time for more incredible journeys into the fossil record and beyond. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring the wonders of our natural world. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Ornithoprion, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence.